Okay, welcome to Friday's lesson, day 5 of us just deepening our understanding about angles. Today's lesson is more so about figuring out multi-step complex problems, which, if you've read the notes, you know is going to take a high level of cognitive awareness, just meaning you have to really be thinking about everything it is that you know about angles to be able to have the mind frame to answer these questions the right way. What that means for you is you have to know what you know. You have to know what you need to know. You have to know complementary angles. You have to know supplementary angles. You know that complementary angles are 90 degrees, supplementary angles are 180. You have to know when you're looking at a vertical angle as well. And then just using that to create equations to help you solve the problems that you're looking for. I've already have my sketch of the first example on here. Again, this is something that you need to have in your notes so that you know what you're looking at when you go back and look at how to answer these questions. Part of studying, as I've explained, is once you've done the practice problem showing all of your work, so you can go back and revisit and review everything it is that you need to know. This problem is asking us for the value of x. Okay, x is a part of an expression that's letting us, it's like giving us a clue for what this exact angle is going to be inside of this here little circle. And so there are a bunch of ways that we can approach this problem. I'm going to take the algebraic method first because that's the one that's going to probably be the most straightforward way to go. And then I'll show you why this 145 is important and just checking our answer. So with that in mind, I'm looking at x minus 9, and it is one angle, and it has an adjacent angle that is just labeled A. I know that based on what I'm seeing, I see a right angle, and these two angles make up that right angle. I know that these two angles are complementary angles. Going back to what I know complementary angles, their sum is 90 degrees. So an equation that I could write to help me solve this would be x minus 9 plus a equals 90 degrees. Now, this isn't going to help me much because I have two variables. So even if I solved for either one of these variables, the value of the variable would just be in terms of a number plus or minus a variable. So I'm going to put a pin in this right here and figure out if I can find the value of A. This is where the notes are hugely important. And I'm just going to go back and review what those notes say. Because the most difficult part about these types of problems is determining where to start. And to do that, we have to determine what it is that we're being asked. So if your first thought was to write down this equation, even without my help, you're going to recognize that you're going to run into a bump in the road. For instance, I could still say plus 9 on both sides. And now I have x plus a equals 99. I need to find the value for x, which means I have to subtract a on both sides. And that's just going to tell me x equals 99 minus a. I still don't know what a is, which means I still don't know what x is. So let me look at this problem again to see what's going to help me figure out the value of a. I'm looking at a, and a also has another adjacent angle. And I'm looking at this straight line. This straight line is also a straight angle, which tells me that a plus 145 will give me 180. We know that the sorry. I know that these are the relationship between a and 145 is they are one supplementary angles, which means their sum is going to give me 180 degrees. I also recognize that they're adjacent angles. So what that would mean for me is that I can put a plus 145. Actually, I'm going to do this in a different color so that your work doesn't seem all jumbled and confused. And I'm going to do it over here, just somewhere it's a little different. I'm going to do a plus 145 equals 180 because those are two supplementary angles. In order for me to find the value of A, I'm going to subtract 145 on both sides. That means that A equals 180 minus 145. 180 minus 145, 100 minus 100. And then I have 80 minus 45, which is 35. So now that I know that A is 35, it's 35 degrees, I can put that back into my first equation and say that X equals 99 minus 35. And 99 minus 35 is going to tell me that X equals 64. Now, the way that I can check this is I can put this value for X back into my original equation and everything should add up. So I would have 64 minus 9, which equals 55. And then I know that A is 35. And if I were to take 55 plus 35, I should get 90. 55 plus 35. 5 plus 5 is 10. Drop my 0, carry my 1. 1 plus 5 is 6. Plus 3 is 9. And that's how I know. I also could say 35 plus 145 is 180. And that's just how I know that all three of these angles are correct. So this one would be 55, 35, and 145. That is how you would answer example 1. If you need to go ahead and pause this video so that you can, go ahead and pause this video so that your notes can match up with mine. And while you're pausing the video to do that, I'm going to set up for example 2. Okay, so I have this problem already modeled up. The question is asking me for the value of the angle BAF. I need to know what the size of this angle is, and I don't have a ton of information to help me figure that out, but there are a number of ways that I can go about this. I'm going to show you the most straightforward way. The thing about having variables, especially when we have the same variable in 3 different angles, is we only need to find the value of one of these variables. So I'm looking at 5x plus 40. I automatically recognize that this is a right angle, which is a safe assumption to make because it looks like a right angle, even if it doesn't have the box. It's very clear. Now, that can be a dangerous thing. So after I find the value for x, I'm just going to double check it by substituting my value for x into each of these. When I add these 2 angles together, if I'm right, then when I substitute and then add these together, it should equal 90. So 5x plus 40 looks like a right angle, so 5x plus 40 should equal 90. And this is my way of going to check that. So 5x plus 40, I'm going to say that 5x plus 40 equals 90. And then I'm going to find the value for x by getting rid of my constant first, and then getting rid of my coefficient. So when I subtract 40 on both sides, that cancels out. I now have 5x equals 90 minus 40, which is 50, divided by 5 on both sides. X equals 10. Cool. These two, okay, so I now know that x equals 10, and I'm still gonna have to find the value of this angle anyway, and I'll explain why. Basically, when I'm looking at value BAF, what I am recognizing is that BAF is a vertical angle with CAE. So I'm looking at this angle, and I'm saying that angle, CAE, is equivalent to BAF. And in order for me to find how much CAE is, I need to find first the value of DAE and then DAC. So I already found the value for DAE. It's 90, and because I know that, I can find the value for x. I'm then going to substitute the value for x into the angle for DAC to find the value for that angle too. So what I'm saying is 6x plus 2 equals DAC. And then I substitute my value x. So now I have 6 times 10 equal plus 2 equals angle DAC. And then order of operations just tells me how I solve this. 6 times 10 is 60 plus 2 equals DAC. 62 equals DAC. So what that tells me is that the first angle is 90 and the second angle is 62. And when I add those together, I'll know the value for angle BAF. 90 plus 62 gives me 152. So I would say that this is 152 degrees. But because I'm a mathematician like you all, I'm going to check my work to make sure that this makes sense. The other way that I can check to make sure this makes sense is by substituting that value for x into this last angle to see what I get. When I find the value of this angle, when I add these two together, I should get 90, just like I did over here. Because when you add all three of these together, it's on this straight, all three of these angles are on this straight line. All three of these angles should equal 180 degrees. So I'm gonna substitute that in. I have 3 times 10 minus 2, 30 minus 2. This angle should be 28 degrees. So now I have 3 angles. I now know the values for all three, 90, 62, and 23. And when I add those together, I should have 180. And that's how I know that this will be 100% correct. 90 plus 62 plus 28. 2 plus 8 is 10. Drop my 0, carry my 1. 1 plus 9 is 10. Plus 6, 16. Plus 2, 18. 180. So that should equal 180 degrees, and which tells me that if these are vertical angles, then 28 should be over here as well. This should be 28 degrees. And when I put this in, it should equal 180. So 152 plus 28 also gives me 180. 1 plus 5 is 6, plus 2 is 8. Bring down my 1. And if you add all of these together, it's 360. That's not something that we're gonna like talk about in depth, but this is the work. This is exactly what it should look like. You can go ahead and pause your video if you need to like copy these notes and make sure that everything that like is on here is in your notebook. So when you go into these harder level problems and on the next page, it makes a lot of sense. Again, knowing what you know, I would start off by just, before you do any of the practice problems, write everything that you know. Write complementary angles, write supplementary angles, write vertical angles, so that you can identify what it is that's missing. And you can use what you know to find out what you don't know. Okay? Definitely gonna be like proud to see who puts that work in and really applies themselves, challenges themselves to be able to overcome these multi-step problems. We're going to be spending some time practicing these. I'm definitely encouraging you to get on Khan Academy to practice some more of these so that you feel really confident when you see these questions in the future. I'm here for you as always. Love you, proud of you. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. Let's go.